Ilan, actually some countries such as Turkey pretend in their media discourse that they support Palestine, but in reality there are close relations in various fields, the most important of which are the economy and gas. Why, in your opinion, has pragmatism prevailed over many Arab and Islamic countries in their relations with the occupying state?
That is a very good question. I think that one of the main problems for these countries that you mentioned is that if they had a pure democratic system and would have asked their citizens, what would you like our policy towards Israel to be? I think most of the people who live in these countries would say, we would like you to take a tough position towards Israel and support more fully and not just pragmatically, morally, support morally the Palestinian struggle for liberation. And I think the pragmatic approach is not just about Palestine. It's a pragmatic approach is a fear that if you allow a principled issue like Palestine to represent exactly what the people want, you may have to listen to the people also about other things that maybe as a regime you don't want to. For example, making the regime more democratic or sharing the wealth of the regimes with the rest of the population, you know, or whatever. So I think there's always, and I think it's a genuine ambivalence. On the one hand, even these leaders, definitely it's true about Erdogan. On the one hand, on an emotional basis, they feel solidarity with the Palestinians, you know, but on trying to be a leader with all the questions of how they run their own countries, they fear that if they allow for a totally honest policy on Palestine, it may open a Pandora box that they might not be able to control. And that's very confusing. You know, you go to East Jerusalem, a lot of Palestinian shops have the picture of Erdogan because they remember, and rightly so, that during the siege on Gaza, he was very supportive of the Palestinians. So now they ask me, so why now does he have these economic, by the way, not just economic, strategic connection? And I say to them, this is the reality of the world we live in. And we have to ask ourselves as human beings, do we agree with everything that our politicians do? And do we agree with the way that they define politics? Namely, where morality, principles, and commitment don't play a great role in what we decide to do, either domestically or in our foreign policies.
Professor Pappe, this is the last question for today. What's the future of the Israeli-Palestinian crisis and Israeli-Arab relations?
Yeah. I think that in the short run, unfortunately, we will see much of the same of what we have today. Namely, even more violence, unfortunately, in Israel and Palestine itself. The continued of kind of pragmatic approach by some of the Arab countries and Muslim countries as well. I mean, we have to watch for Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And this will go on for a while. But I think in the medium range future, this is going to change. This is going to change because there is an interesting connection which I tried to point out in my talk in Manama in Bahrain. I said, you know, when the Israelis look at the Arab world and the Arab world says Israel is okay, we have no problem with Israel, they always vote for the most extreme right-wing party. Because the logic is, if the Arab world doesn't care, maybe the right wing, you know, those extreme people in Israel who believe that you can do whatever you want to the Palestinians are right. There's nothing to worry about. So the more the normalization will continue, the more extreme Israel will become. But this is only part of the process. The more extreme Israel becomes, it will be more difficult for the world to accept it as the only democracy in the Middle East. So I think in a kind of a, a kind of like a checkmate game, the first two moves are not important. What is important are the last ones. And I think in the end of the day, there will be a liberated Palestine, a decolonized one. My only hope is, I'm nearly 70, so I don't think I will see it. But my only hope is that this would not be with a lot of violence, for the sake of everyone, that the transition to a more democratic, more decolonized place would be as peaceful as possible. I do hope so, inshallah.
Professor Pappe, at the end of our meeting, if you have a last word to our channel and our fans. Thank you so much for your kindness and your generosity to be with us today.
It's a great pleasure to be on such a unique channel, to talk to people that I think usually cannot hear my voice always. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity. And I really want to say, and maybe this is the most important thing, I'm not the only voice in Israel who thinks that way. We're not a majority. We're not a majority. We are a minority. But it's important even to have that minority of people who were born in Israel and then believe that Israel belongs, and Palestine, are part of the Arab world, who know the history of the Arab world, understand it, want to be part of it, want to be part of its problems and part of its solution. And I think this is an important message because sometimes people tend to identify a state with all the people who live there. Yes, there are some bad states, but not all the people who live in those bad states are bad people. I think that's very important to remember.
I'm deeply appreciative again, Professor Ilan Pappé. Thank you to you also, our dear followers. Until we meet again, here is Hamza Al-Kinani to enrich the mind, not to arouse emotions. Thank you so much.